In the bitter cold of an English winter, a simple farmer's unusual method to boost fuel performance quietly reshaped the skies over Europe. His crazy idea gave the P-51 Mustang an edge no German fighter could match. What happens next will decide the fate of the men involved. Spring 1944. Over the gray skies of England, the drone of aircraft engines filled the air with relentless urgency. Day after day, American bomber formations cut through the clouds, heading toward targets deep in Nazi-occupied Europe. Their escorts, sleek P-51 Mustangs, flashed over the fields and airstrips, engines growling with increasing intensity. Along the tarmac, ground crews worked in swift, practiced motions, their faces etched with fatigue and determination. They loaded the Mustangs with a new type of fuel, volatile, unfamiliar, and crucial to giving the fighters an edge in speed and endurance. Unlike the usual blends refined in factories and laboratories, this fuel was the product of something wholly unexpected. Russell, a farmer from rural America, was not a chemist or an engineer. His hands, calloused from years of tilling soil and tending livestock, had instead crafted a formula from common farm materials. It was a simple recipe, cobbled together in a barn rather than a lab, born out of necessity and stubborn hope. The military had called it crazy, yet with mounting pressure they chose to take the risk. The new fuel promised an advantage that could tilt the brutal air war in the Allies' favor, a precious gain that might save lives and bring victory closer. Now on the brink of testing under fire, every loading, every engine start carried an unspoken tension. The men who flew these planes and those who prepared them were about to confront the unknown. This was more than a technical experiment. It was a gamble on courage, trust, and the belief that ordinary people could change the course of history. What happens next will decide the fate of the men involved. This is the story of one crazy trick, and the quiet bravery of those who risked everything to make it work. The barn was dim, the air thick with the sharp scent of chemicals and aged wood. Russell stood motionless for a moment, the faded light from a single bulb catching the dust motes drifting above the barrels. Around him, rows of metal drums marked with crude labels held the fruits of his labor, blends of octane and anti-knock agents, each bottle a small gamble. His fingers trembled slightly, betraying the weight of what he was attempting. He unfolded a government pamphlet, its edges worn from repeated readings, and scanned the technical drawings and instructions once more. Outside, the world was quiet except for the distant rumble of trains rolling past the farm. The sleep of the land was broken only by their metallic growl, a reminder of movement and war beyond these fields. Neighbors had stopped by earlier in the day, their voices low and mocking. "Foolish tinkering," one had said, watching the faint vapors rising from the open tanks. Others simply laughed when the faint chemical scent carried on the breeze, trailing over the golden wheat. Russell heard their derision, but never responded. He worked with a purpose they could not see. His gaze drifted upwards, beyond the rafters. Somewhere above the clouds, his son was flying. The thought was a silent anchor in the swirling doubts. He imagined the young pilot navigating gray skies over Europe, the roar of engines sharper than any roar in his barn. This was for him, each measured pour, each careful mixture. A clear liquid slid from the glass pipette into a battered can, the sound a faint hiss that filled the stillness. His hands shook, not from fear but from exhaustion and hope woven together. Russell moved to the battered truck parked just outside the barn's wide door. Its faded green paint chipped, the vehicle bore the scars of many seasons and long service. He poured the new blend into the fuel tank and wiped his hands on his worn trousers. The engine coughed uncertainly, a tense moment of hesitation that held the breath of the whole farm. Then with a sudden surge, the motor roared to life, a deeper, stronger hum that echoed in the quiet morning. He leaned close, ears straining for any irregular noise, eyes narrowing at the dashboard. The engine's pulse steadied, promising more than before. He pulled a small notebook from his pocket and scribbled notes rapidly, the pencil strokes hurried and uneven. His face was marked by worry lines, but beneath them his expression remained resolute. This was progress, fragile yet vital. The next seconds would change the course of the confrontation between hope and failure. The experiment was more than science. It was a message to the distant men in uniform who needed every advantage. Russell sealed an envelope, carefully enclosing his findings, and addressed it to the Army Air Forces. The weight of the letter was a silent pact between father and son, between a man's labor and the war effort. Inside the farmhouse, the kitchen carried a different tension. The walls were bare save for a calendar and a faded photograph of Russell's son in uniform. His wife sat at the worn wooden table, hands folded tightly, her eyes searching the horizon beyond the window. The morning light cast long shadows, the silence heavy with unspoken fears. She hoped for a letter, any word from the front, but braced herself for the possibility of loss. The sound of the kitchen clock ticking was a steady reminder of time passing and the fragility of their waiting. Back in the barn, the faint stain of spilled fuel darkened the wooden floor, a small testament to the day's efforts and errors. The scent lingered, mingling with the dust and sweat, a quiet record of a man's devotion and sacrifice. Outside, the wind stirred the tall grass, carrying the faint echo of distant engines and the hopes of a family bound to a war they could not fully see. Stay with this moment, everything is about to shift. A heavy transport truck rumbled down the rutted dirt road leading to the airfield, its cargo concealed beneath tarpaulins. The morning sky hung low over Suffolk, the air crisp but charged with an unfamiliar sharpness. The truck's rear doors swung open, revealing rows of metal barrels stamped with the name Russell's Fuel. The mechanics gathered around, their oil-stained coveralls marked by months of grease and grime. They studied the labels quietly, some exchanging brief glances, others running a finger along the stenciled lettering as if trying to read a foreign script. The scent of the fuel was pungent and strange, cutting through the usual mixture of petrol, rubber, and earth that clung to the airfield. It unsettled the men, stirring memories they would rather keep buried. One mechanic squinted toward the barrels, then shifted his gaze to the briefing officer who had just appeared, clipboard in hand. The officer's voice broke through the quiet murmur like a sharp whistle. "Gentlemen, this new blend could be our ed. It might help us outclimb the Jerrys." Pilots standing nearby caught the words, their faces tightening as they exchanged skeptical glances. They understood all too well what new blend could mean. Fuel was the lifeblood of their machines, and any change was a gamble. Some saw opportunity, others saw risk. The slightest error in composition might cause engines to falter mid-flight, or worse, fail outright. The mechanics remembered the stories. The crash last summer when contaminated fuel sent a P-47 down in flames just after takeoff. The memory hung heavy between them, unspoken but palpable. One of the older mechanics, his hands rough and cracked from years of wrenching on engines, tapped the side of a barrel and spoke low. "I've seen what bad fuel does. That crash, we lost a good pilot and a good plane." The others nodded silently, their eyes darkening with recollection. Yet, despite the apprehension, they all understood the chain of command. Orders were orders, and this fuel had to be used. A group of ground crew began the careful process of transferring the new blend into a waiting P-51 Mustang. The silver belly of the fighter gleamed faintly under the weak sunlight, its wings stretched wide and ready. The hiss of the fuel pump filled the air, steady and sure, as the barrels emptied into the Mustang's tanks. The mechanics wiped their hands on their canvas pants, the coarse fabric rough against their skin, while their eyes followed every movement with quiet intensity. The nearby pilots watched in silence, some leaning against their planes, others standing stiffly, hands tucked into their flight jackets. The air was thick with anticipation, and a latent tension born of countless missions flown on faith alone. The scent of oil, fuel, and the damp earth mingled to create a sharp, tangible mixture that clung to their senses. As the final barrel was emptied, the pilot assigned to the Mustang approached the cockpit. His leather flight helmet was tucked under one arm, and his goggles caught the sunlight with a brief sparkle. Ground crew stepped aside as he climbed into the cockpit, settling with practiced ease into the molded seat. The canopy slid shut with a faint metallic click, sealing him inside. Outside, the mechanics and pilots held their breath, watching the silent figure prepare for what was to come. From the control tower, the loudspeaker crackled to life, its voice steady and clipped over the ambient noise of the airfield. "Ready for test run," the words carried on the morning wind, reaching every man gathered below. Engines hummed and roared, the Mustang's propeller spinning up in a blur. Dust stirred along the taxiway as the plane began its cautious movement toward the runway. What happens next will decide the fate of the men involved. The pilot's hands gripped the controls, muscles taut with focus. Engines responded, feeding power through the aircraft's frame. The silence among the ground crew was profound, broken only by the steady increase in engine noise. The test run was more than a routine check. It was a measure of trust in the unknown fuel now coursing through the Mustang's veins. The plane accelerated, wheels rolling over the cracked concrete, its shadow sharp against the ground. Eyes tracked every motion, every vibration, waiting for signs of faltering or distress. The pilot pushed the throttle forward, the Mustang surging ahead, lifting gently from the ground with a grace born of engineering and sheer resolve. The airfield fell away beneath the wings as the plane climbed, its silver skin catching the sunlight in a steady gleam. Stay with this moment, everything is about to shift. The tension eased fractionally as the Mustang gained altitude, engines humming smoothly. The new fuel blend seemed to cooperate, the aircraft responding with greater power and speed. The pilot banked gently, testing the plane's climb, feeling the engine's heartbeat steady beneath him. The mechanics and pilots on the ground exchanged guarded looks, hope threading through their cautious watchfulness. As the Mustang disappeared into the pale morning sky, the airfield returned to its usual rhythm. The scent of fuel and oil lingered, mingling with the distant calls of birds and the faint rustle of leaves in the breeze. The men resumed their movements, hands busy but minds focused. The test was underway, and with it, the fragile hope that this new fuel could tilt the balance in their favor. The ground crew gathered their tools, wiping sweat and grime from brows and forearms. The briefing officer made notes, his expression unreadable but eyes sharp. The pilots prepared for their flights, their faces set with determination. Beneath it all lay an unspoken understanding that every innovation came with risk, and every risk carried the weight of honor. The Mustang's return would bring answers, yet for now, the airfield held its breath beneath the pale light of a Suffolk morning. The men waited, caught between past fears and future possibilities. The new fuel was more than a substance. It was a symbol of the relentless pursuit of advantage in a war that demanded everything. Lieutenant Baker settled into the cockpit of the P-51 Mustang, the familiar scent of oil and metal filling his nostrils. The leather straps dug into his shoulders as he fastened himself securely, fingers steady despite the tension coiling beneath his skin. Outside, the air trembled with heat rising from the sun-baked runway, wavering like a mirage in the late afternoon light. The distant hum of other planes waiting to take off blended with the sharp clatter of ground crew moving about in the dust. His eyes scanned the instrument panel, the round dials and needles gleaming under the small canopy light. He checked each gauge twice, confirming fuel levels, oil pressure, and engine temperature. The cockpit felt cramped and familiar, every knob and switch a part of a routine drilled into him during training. Yet today the Mustang felt different, a new force to be mastered. With a practiced motion, Baker turned the ignition key. The engine sputtered briefly, coughing smoke into the exhaust pipes before erupting into a fierce, relentless howl. The powerful V12 Merlin engine vibrated beneath him, filling the cockpit with deep mechanical resonance. The sound was raw, demanding respect. The Mustang's propeller sliced the air, sending waves of heat rippling off the runway's cracked surface. His heart hammered in his chest, the rhythm matching the rising roar of the engine. The aircraft shuddered slightly as the throttle advanced, every vibration transmitted through the seat and controls. For a moment, Baker closed his eyes, steadying his breath. This was what he had trained for, the edge between control and chaos. Slowly, the Mustang began to move forward, the wheels rolling over the sun-baked tarmac. The plane accelerated rapidly, each second pushing him closer to the invisible line where Earth gave way to sky. The runway blurred beneath him, heat waves lifting the dust in shimmering curtains. Baker's grip tightened on the control stick as the aircraft surged ahead, faster than any plane he had flown before. He allowed himself a brief grin, exhilarated by the raw power beneath him. Yet the smile faded quickly, replaced by a furrowed brow. The Mustang was unlike anything he knew, responsive but unforgiving. Its strength was thrilling, but every motion required precision and respect. One wrong move could send him spiraling out of control. Reaching the end of the runway, he eased back on the stick. The Mustang's nose lifted smoothly, the wheels leaving the ground with a soft rumble. He was airborne. The earth fell away beneath him, the landscape shrinking into a patchwork quilt of fields and roads. The wind buffeted the fuselage, and the cockpit filled with the sound of rushing air. Climbing steadily, Baker pushed the throttle forward, seeking altitude. The engine groaned under the strain, then settled into a steady, powerful song. Above him, the sky was a pale, endless dome, the sun casting long shadows over the patchwork below. At 20,000 feet, he leveled off, the Mustang responding obediently to every input. His mind flickered to the shadowed memories of German fighters, Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs. He had only glimpsed during training exercises and brief encounters. The thought sharpened his focus, the reality of combat pressing against the thrill of flight. What happens next will decide the fate of the men involved. Circling back toward the airfield, Baker felt the strain of constant attention. The Mustang demanded vigilance, every adjustment influencing speed, altitude, and trajectory. His hands trembled slightly as he prepared for landing. The ground rushed up to meet him, the runway a narrow strip cutting through the landscape. Touching down was a jolt to the body. The wheels struck the surface hard, the plane shuddering under the impact. Dust erupted at the edges of the runway, swirling in the fading light. Baker kept the controls firm, guiding the Mustang to a halt. The engine's roar faded into a steady hum. As the plane rolled to a stop, the ground crew hurried forward, their faces marked by dust and sweat. They moved with practiced efficiency, checking the aircraft and offering quick words. Baker climbed out of the cockpit, legs stiff but steady, his uniform dusted with grime. His hands shook visibly, and his eyes were wide, an unspoken testament to the raw intensity of his first Mustang flight. He met the gaze of one of the mechanics, nodding toward the cockpit with a simple invitation. "You need to try this," he said quietly, voice steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through him. The moment hung heavy in the warm air, the tension between fear and exhilaration still palpable. The Mustang stood silent now, its engine cooling in the lengthening shadows. Baker's breath slowed, but the echo of the flight lingered in his mind, a reminder of the honor and danger intertwined in every mission. Stay with this moment, everything is about to shift. The mess hall buzzed with low voices, a cramped room filled with pilots in uniform, their faces drawn with exhaustion and concern. The air smelled faintly of burnt coffee and grease from the kitchen, mingling with the stale smoke of countless cigarettes. Against the clatter of trays and silverware, whispers floated about the crazy new fuel being issued. Some pilots scoffed openly, dismissing the warnings as overblown, while others leaned in, ears sharpened by uncertainty. The tension in the room was thick, a silent undercurrent beneath the casual talk. Near the center, a grizzled flight commander leaned back in his chair, his lined face shadowed under the brim of his cap. He had flown in the deserts of North Africa, where less forgiving fuel failures had cost lives. His voice, gravelly and steady, cut through the murmurs as he recalled those harsh lessons. "Back then," he said quietly, "we lost good men because the petrol wouldn't hold under the heat. I'm not convinced this blend is any safer." His words hung heavy, eyes scanning the younger pilots for reactions. A young pilot at the next table laughed, a brittle sound masking his own unease. "Maybe it's just like moonshine," he joked, raising an imaginary glass. The others chuckled, but the humor was thin, brittle. Everyone knew the truth. Above 20,000 feet, the Luftwaffe's Focke-Wulfs were lethal, their speed and firepower unmatched. The new fuel was meant to give them a fighting chance, but the fear lingered. The room's chatter faltered, the laughter dying down into a tense silence. Outside, the cold light of dawn crept through the narrow windows, casting long shadows on the worn wooden floor. The distant drone of engines and the occasional sharp crackle from the base radio punctuated the quiet moments. Then the radio sprang alive with a terse message. Another bomber group had been lost over Berlin, their formation shattered by enemy fighters. The news settled like a weight in the room, grounding the talk in grim reality. As the radio fell silent again, a resolute calm spread through the pilots. The uncertainty about the fuel remained, but so did their purpose. Tomorrow's escort run would be their test, and the mix, Russell's blend, would be in their tanks. It was a gamble, but one they had to accept. The flight commander's eyes met those of the young jokester, the silent exchange acknowledging shared resolve beneath their different demeanors. Silverware clattered sharply against metal trays, breaking the quiet as the men finished their rations. Movements grew deliberate, conversations stilled. The mess hall felt smaller, the air heavier with the weight of what was to come. Outside, the wind picked up, stirring dust against the hangar walls, as if nature itself held its breath. The pilots rose from their seats, shoulders squared, faces set. In that moment, honor bound them together, not just as airmen, but as men facing the unknown with steady hearts. The blend of fear and determination was as real as the cold fuel in their tanks. The mess hall emptied slowly, the lingering echo of footsteps and distant engines marking the passage from uneasy rest to readiness. What happened next would decide not just the success of their mission, but the measure of their courage under fire. Stay with this moment, everything is about to shift. Before the sun fully rose, a cold fog clung to the airstrip, softening the edges of the worn concrete and hangars. The gray mist mixed with the scent of damp earth and cold oil, a heavy stillness settling over the base. Mechanics moved quickly, their breath visible in the chill morning air, hands steady despite the cold as they loaded drums of fuel onto the waiting P-51 Mustangs. The fuel's sharp smell stung their eyes, forcing them to blink rapidly, heads turning away from the acrid vapor that filled the space between engines and equipment. Boots scraped against the frost-hardened tarmac as pilots emerged from their quarters, their flight jackets zipped tight against the morning's bite. Each man's face was set, marked by the strain of countless missions yet not showing fatigue. Among them, Baker walked with a weight heavier than the cold air. His jaw was clenched, eyes scanning the line of Mustangs as if willing them to be ready. He had led many sorties before, but in this quiet hour a palpable tension hung around him, a burden he carried quietly. The mechanics worked with practiced efficiency, their hands moving over the gleaming silver bodies of the Mustangs. The engines, steel surfaces reflected the weak dawn light, droplets of condensation shimmering like small beads before the machines rumbled to life. The sharp, acrid scent of burning fuel grew stronger as the pilots climbed into their cockpits. The smell burned deeper now, mixing with the metallic tang of lubricants and the faint smell of leather from their gear. Baker was the first to settle into his Mustang, helmet in hand, his face momentarily shadowed beneath the canopy. His fingers tightened briefly around the controls, a small gesture that held the weight of the mission ahead. The others followed, each man disappearing behind the glass and steel of their planes, their movements precise and rehearsed. The engines roared to life with a sudden force, sending plumes of thick, dark exhaust curling into the cold air, momentarily blotting out the fragile morning light. The roar filled the space, drowning out the soft crackle of radios and the muffled voices of ground crews shouting final checks. The sound was a promise and a warning, power ready to be unleashed, and danger stalking just beyond the horizon. The mission was clear: escort the bombers deep into Germany, keep them safe from enemy fighters, and bring every man home. The enormity of the task rested quietly in the cockpit, alongside the pilots, steady hands and sharpened focus. Inside the control tower, Officers in heavy wool uniforms peered through thick glass windows, eyes fixed on their watches and the unfolding scene below. The room was filled with the low murmur of voices, clipped and efficient, radio transmissions crackling over the lines. Every word was deliberate, every command measured. The tension was tangible, a silent undercurrent beneath the routine procedural exchanges. The clock ticked steadily, marking the passing moments before the Mustangs would vanish into the sky. The pilots' radio channels hummed with brief, clipped messages. Each voice bore the weight of urgency, the unspoken understanding that every second counted. "All clear here," one reported. Another responded with a terse acknowledgement. The exchanges were short but carried the heavy responsibility of coordination, a lifeline between those on the ground and those who would soon be locked in combat hundreds of miles away. With a final nod from the tower, the Mustangs began their taxi toward the run. Their wheels grated against the frost-hardened surface, leaving tracks that quickly faded under the returning morning light. One by one, the planes accelerated, their engines rising in pitch and volume until the sound was a continuous roar. Dust and gravel were kicked up behind them, swirling in the weak dawn wind. Then, like a silver wave cresting and breaking, the Mustangs lifted off the ground. The planes disappeared into the low-lying clouds, their silhouettes fading into the dense mist. The roar of their engines was swallowed by the morning, the airstrip falling silent once more except for the distant, soft echo of their passage. Below, the mechanics exchanged brief glances, hands already reaching for the next task, but their eyes held quiet respect for the men now racing toward the unknown. What happens next will decide the fate of the men involved. The fragile line between survival and loss was drawn in the sky, and every heartbeat counted. Stay with this moment, everything is about to shift. The bomber formation stretched across the sky at 25,000 feet, a rigid line of steel and glass shimmering faintly under the pale, cold sunlight. The air was thin and biting, the roar of engines a constant mechanical pulse. Against the vast blue, the silhouettes of B-17s moved steadily, their bulky frames casting long shadows on the scattered clouds below. Around them, the 4 Mustang fighters from Baker's squadron maintained their protective circle, wings steady in the high-altitude draft. Without warning, dark specks appeared far above, tiny and ominous against the brightness. The shapes sharpened quickly as they dove, a sudden jagged drop that split the comet. German Messerschmitt Bf-109s, their sleek bodies cutting through the sky with deadly intent. The Luftwaffe fighters were closing fast, descending like shadows cast by an unseen hand. The warning bells vibrated through the radio channels, tense voices crackling with urgent commands. Baker's squadron's response was immediate. Throttles opened wide, engines screaming to full power. The Mustangs surged forward, a burst of speed that tore through the thin atmosphere as they climbed aggressively toward the incoming threat. The shift was stark. No longer lagging behind, the American pilots now pressed their advantage with hard-earned confidence. The Messerschmitt pilots glanced upward, startled by the sudden speed. The Americans, once slower and vulnerable, were now climbing fast, their fighters agile and determined. It was a surprise they could ill afford. The Luftwaffe's precision formed faltered, hesitation flickering in the eyes behind tinted goggles. Baker's wingman, Lieutenant Harris, locked onto a target ahead. His Mustang powered upward, engine notes rising into a high-pitched scream. The air was thin, the cold biting through the oxygen mask and seeping into his bones. Sweat slicked his hands on the controls, betraying his calm exterior. A moment ago, fear had gnawed at him. Now it sharpened into a fierce focus. The enemy fighter was close, dangerously close. Harris pulled alongside the Messerschmitt, the two planes matching speed in a sudden, deadly dance. The Germans' machine guns spat tracers, bright lines of lead tearing through the sky, some passing too close to Harris's wing. The rattle of gunfire mixed with the roar of their engines filled the cockpit. Harris's breath was steady, fingers tightening on the trigger. He squeezed the control and fired. The Mustang's twin .50 caliber machine guns erupted, their bullets streaming out in a relentless burst. The tracers hit the enemy's fuselage, sparks flying where metal met metal. The German plane shuddered violently, smoke trailing from its engine. It spiraled sharply downward, wings wobbling in the thin air, disappearing behind the clouds below. The moment hung heavy with tension. The kill was real, earned in fire and skill. Baker watched the skirmish unfold, his own Mustang bleeding oil from a minor hit but still holding steady. His hands were slick with sweat, gripping the controls tightly as the engine roared beneath him. The sky around them was thick with vapor trails, twisted white lines crisscrossing like the scars of battle. Gunfire echoed faintly across the vast expanse, punctuated by the sharp staccato of tracer rounds. The formation wove through the chaos, each pilot aware their lives depended on split-second decisions. The cold air pressed against their faces. The thin hum of oxygen masks a constant reminder of the altitude. Below, the earth was distant and silent, a quiet contrast to the fierce combat overhead. What happens next will decide the fate of the men involved. The tension in the sky was a fragile thing. Any lapse could mean disaster. Baker signaled his squadron to regroup, the Mustangs tightening their protective ring around the vulnerable bombers. The German fighters, though aggressive, began to pull back, their formations disrupted by the unexpected American speed and determination. The brief clash had turned the tide of this encounter, but the threat remained palpable. Every pilot knew the stakes, the lives of their comrades, the success of the mission, and the fragile hope of returning home. The harsh light of the high altitude reflected off scratched windshields and dented armor plates, a testament to the brutal reality of air combat. Stay with this moment, everything is about to shift. The sky held its breath as the two sides circled each other, poised for the next move. Amid the roar and the smoke, there was an unspoken honor among the men. Each fighter pilot carried the weight of duty and the memory of those who had fallen before. The dogfight was a grim ballet, executed with precision and courage, framed by the vastness of the war-torn sky. The formation pressed onward, engines straining and hearts steady. The mission was far from over, but in this brief clash the balance had tilted, if only for a moment, in the favor of the Mustang pilots and the men they protected. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows over the scattered rows of crumpled canvas hangars and concrete slabs. A growing crowd gathered near the returned Mustangs, their silver skins marred with fresh scars of war. Engines hissed and steamed, still warm to the touch despite the cooling air. Mechanics knelt beside the aircraft, fingers tracing jagged bullet holes, faces drawn tight with concentration. The sharp scent of burnt fuel and hot oil hung in the air, mingling with the faint metallic tang of spent cartridges. One crew chief crouched beside an engine, pulling a spark plug free with a practiced twist, then held it up to the light. He sniffed near the fuel tank's opening, searching for contamination. Around him, others exchanged terse nods, silently assessing damage that could mean life or death on the next sortie. The noise of tools clinking and radios crackling filled the space, competing with the distant rumble of other aircraft taking off. Nearby, a group of officers in olive drab uniforms clustered, their expressions grave beneath scuffed caps. A junior commander spoke quickly into a field telephone, his fingers tapping nervously on a clipboard as he awaited updates. Russell's name came up in the briefing, one sergeant murmured to a fellow mechanic, voice low and steady. The name was new to the airfield's rapid chatter, carrying a weight that turned heads. The man had not been mentioned before in this tight circle, but now his actions were being formally recorded, his presence acknowledged at last by the staff. A telegraph operator sat in a small, dust-covered office near the runway, sending a telegram to headquarters. The message was brief, coded, and urgent. It contained the facts: the number of planes lost, aircraft returned, and the mention of Russell's involvement in the engagement. Outside, the wind stirred loose papers and kicked up grit, a reminder of the relentless desert that surrounded them. As twilight deepened, the communal dinner hall filled with subdued voices and quiet footsteps. The base chaplain stood before the gathered airmen, hands folded, eyes closed. His voice was calm but resolute, as he offered thanks for the safe return of those who had survived, and for the courage of those still missing. The men sat stiffly, some bowing their heads, others staring into the distance. Nearby, a cluster of bunks sat empty, their blankets folded neatly, personal effects packed away. The absence was a stark presence, silent testimony to the cost exacted that day. Airmen who had shared jokes and stories just hours before were now only memories etched into these empty spaces. The survivors moved about in muted silence, faces marked by exhaustion and unspoken grief. Some lit cigarettes, the smoke curling upward in thin gray wisps that vanished quickly in the dry air. Their eyes reflected the weight of what they had witnessed, friends lost, the roar of battle, and the fragile thread that had brought them back. A mechanic ran a hand over the cool fuselage of a Mustang, fingertips brushing over a fresh dent. He paused, the brief contact a moment of connection with the machine that had been both protector and target. Around him, others prepared the planes for inspection, performing routine checks with a care that bordered on reverence. In a corner, a young pilot stared at a crumpled photograph taped inside his helmet, lips moving silently as if speaking to the image. The din of activity faded around him, replaced by the distant echoes of engines and the unshakable presence of loss. "Wait here," an officer said sharply, moving through the crowd with purpose. His voice cut through the murmurs, signaling that new orders were incoming. The airfield seemed to hold its breath, the quiet before the next unfolding moment of duty. The sun finally dipped below the horizon, leaving a cold twilight that settled over the base. Lights flickered on inside the mess hall, casting rectangles of brightness against the growing dark. Outside, the desert wind carried a chill, and the faint sound of distant aircraft engines, reminders that the war pressed on beyond this exhausted outpost. What happens next will decide the fate of the men involved. The day's events had set in motion forces that could not be undone, and each man carried the weight of that knowledge deep within. As the night deepened, the silence among the survivors grew heavier, filled with thoughts too complex for words. The battle had ended, but the reckoning in their hearts was only just beginning. They were bound by honor and memory, united in the quiet recognition of sacrifice. Stay with this moment, everything is about to shift. The calm on the ground was fragile, a brief pause before the inevitable continuation of a war that demanded both courage and the endurance to carry on. In a dimly lit room deep within a Berlin Luftwaffe headquarters, a cluster of officers gathered around a battered wooden table strewn with freshly printed combat reports. The air was thick with cigarette smoke, mingling with the faint, metallic tang of engine oil that clung to worn leather flight jackets hung on nearby hooks. Outside, a late autumn drizzle tapped rhythmically against the tall windows, muffling the distant rumble of the city. A young pilot, face pale and tired, leaned forward and spoke with a voice roughened by exhaustion. "The Mustangs climb like devils," he said, his German accent sharp against the English name. His eyes flicked to the others, seeking confirmation. "Every time we engage, they gain altitude faster. Our Focke-Wulfs struggle to keep pace." His words carried a quiet frustration, the kind born from repeated failure against an adversary adapting faster than expected. An older officer, his uniform crisp despite the long hours, nodded slowly. "Reports confirm this," he said, tapping a finger against a sheet marked with black ink annotations. "Our pilots are returning with wounds and empty magazines." His gaze hardened as he studied the detailed accounts of dogfights where Luftwaffe squadrons had been forced into retreat. The Mustang's superior climb rate was no longer a rumor whispered in briefings. It was a fact etched in the bloodied records of air combat. Nearby, a group of technical staff worked in a cluttered workshop beneath flickering fluorescent lights. Their hands moved carefully over pieces of dismantled Mustang wreckage brought in from crash sites. The scent of fresh fuel, hot gasoline and something unfamiliar, lingered heavily in the air. A technician frowned, inhaling deeply before exhaling with a sharp cough. "This scent," he muttered in German, "it clings to the metal. Different from what we see in our own aircraft." One engineer held a small vial, swirling a dark liquid that shimmered faintly under the harsh lights. Additive or new-grade fuel, perhaps, he suggested, passing the sample to a colleague. Their voices were low, a mixture of scientific curiosity and unease. If the Americans have developed new fuel technology, it could explain the Mustang's increased performance. The room was silent for a moment, the weight of this possibility settling on their shoulders. In another corner, a well-known German ace sat alone, his uniform buttoned neatly despite the fatigue etched into his features. He carefully sketched the outlines of American aircraft in his worn notebook, the pages filled with precise lines and annotations. His pencil moved deliberately as he noted unusual exhaust patterns next to the drawings. He paused, staring out the window into the gray skyline before returning to his work. Fear and professional curiosity intertwined in his steady hands. The ace knew that acknowledging the enemy's advancements was both a threat and a necessity. The Luftwaffe had once dominated these skies, but now the balance of air power was shifting, slowly, inexorably. He closed his notebook with a quiet sigh, the sound barely audible over the distant city noise. Orders were quietly dispatched to intelligence teams, sealed envelopes handed over to couriers who disappeared into the labyrinthine streets of Berlin. The directive was clear: gather all possible information on this new aircraft and its technology. Reconnaissance flights were to be increased, and any captured Mustang wreckage was to be examined thoroughly. The old certainty that had buoyed German air forces was giving way to a cautious vigilance. Back in the briefing room, the officers exchanged glances heavy with unspoken acknowledgement. The war in the air was no longer a contest of familiar machines and tactics. It was evolving into a battle of innovation, one that demanded swift adaptation or risked defeat. One of the younger officers leaned in and said quietly, "If we do not understand what gives the Mustangs this advantage, we will lose more than our planes." His words hung in the air, a stark reminder that the fate of men and machines was intertwined. The room fell into a tense silence, broken only by the scratch of pens on paper and the distant roll of thunder. Outside, clouds thickened, casting long shadows over the city. The Luftwaffe's grasp on the skies was slipping, imperceptibly but unavoidably. What happens next will decide the fate of the men involved. This quiet moment of realization marked a turning point. The German Air Force faced a new opponent, not just in enemy pilots, but in the relentless advance of technology and strategy. The musty room, filled with reports and fuel odors, became a crucible where the future was being weighed. Stay with this moment, everything is about to shift. The officers rose, their movements deliberate and measured. They understood the gravity of their mission, now more than ever. Orders would be carried out with precision, and every resource would be directed toward countering the Mustang threat. Outside the window, the rain ceased. The clouds began to part, allowing a faint, cold light to seep into the room. It illuminated the weary faces of men tasked with defending their homeland amid a changing war. The balance of air power was no longer static. It was a contested, fragile line drawn in the smoke and silence above the battlefields. The Luftwaffe prepared to meet this challenge, bound by duty and honor to fight for every inch of sky. The echo of this moment would linger long after the engines fell silent. Russell sat at the kitchen table, a single beam of morning light slicing through the dust motes suspended in the air. The letter from the War Department lay before him, its paper stiff and official, bearing a terse, stamped classification. Strategic material. His eyes traced the words slowly, the finality of government language settling over him like a cold fog. The blend he had carefully refined, his son's last project, was now deemed a vital asset, locked away behind layers of secrecy. Outside, the Missouri summer pressed heavy and still. The familiar scent of cut hay mingled with the distant hum of a tractor engine. Neighbors passed by on the dusty road, their eyes flickering with something between admiration and wariness as they glanced toward Russell's farmstead. Whispers had begun. What exactly was he making in that old barn? Some called it a miracle, others a mystery, but all spoke in hushed tones. The weight of their mixed gazes felt as heavy as the humid. In the evenings, Russell sat near the crackling radio, its wooden cabinet glowing faintly in the dim kitchen. The voice of the announcer broke through static and tension alike, detailing the latest Allied air victories over Europe. Reports of bomber formations tearing through the skies, of enemy factories reduced to rubble. Each broadcast etched a flicker of hope, yet also deepened his unease. He understood, in a way few did, the invisible thread connecting his work beneath that old roof to those distant battles. After the radio quieted, Russell often found himself wandering the fields under a thick quilt of stars. The earth beneath his boots was soft, still bearing the scars of the recent harvest. The night air carried the faint scent of tobacco and damp soil, mingling with a memory he couldn't quite reach. Clutched in his hand were the dog-eared postcards his son had sent from training camps overseas, brief messages scrawled in hurried handwriting, snapshots of faces and places now irrevocably lost to war. Within the barn, silence reigned. The wooden beams creaked faintly in the stillness, and the once dark stain on the floor had faded to a dull shade. That mark, a stark reminder of sacrifice and urgency, held a weight far heavier than its appearance. Russell's gaze often lingered on it, but the full truth remained locked away, known only to those who had carried the burden firsthand. He never learned the entire story of how the fuel his son helped perfect had powered the aircraft that roared through foreign skies. The seasons shifted imperceptibly, the slow turning of a world irrevocably changed by conflict. Neighbors continued their work, children's laughter threading through the fields, while Russell's days settled into a quiet rhythm of waiting and remembrance. The war's distant thunder echoed faintly in his mind, a constant but fading presence. He grappled with pride and loss, honor and grief intertwined in a fragile balance. What happens next will decide the fate of the men involved. One late afternoon, as gray clouds gathered low, Russell stood on the porch watching the horizon. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the distant rumble of thunder and a hint of rain. He thought of the pilots and mechanics, of the hidden machinery and unseen hands that kept the engines running. Their stories were etched into that fading stain and woven through the fabric of his days. The war moved on, relentless and vast, but here on this quiet farm, a man held onto the fragile thread connecting his own small efforts to the larger struggle. The blend in his care, classified and unseen, was a silent testament to a son's sacrifice and a father's hope. The full measure of that sacrifice remained beyond his reach, yet its shadow lingered in every breath and step. Stay with this moment, everything is about to shift. As night deepened, Russell returned to the barn one last time before bed. The wooden floor groaned softly beneath his boots. He reached down, tracing the outline of the fading stain with a calloused finger, feeling the coolness of the boards beneath. The barn smelled of old wood and oil, a scent that would remain long after the war's end. Outside, the wind stilled, and the first drops of rain began to fall, tapping a quiet rhythm on the roof. The war's great machinery moved beyond the fields of Missouri, yet here, in this unassuming place, a small piece of that vast conflict remained tethered to the earth. Honor lived not just in grand victories, but in the quiet, unspoken acts of those who toiled unseen. Russell's story, like the fading stain, was an echo carried forward, a solemn reminder of what had been given and what must never be forgotten. The sky over Berlin was a vast, restless gray as the Allied bombers formed a rigid line, their engines humming a deep, steady drone. Below, the city's outline wavered in a haze of dust and smoke from fires long burning. Escorting Mustangs sliced through the cold air, their sleek frames catching scattered shafts of late summer sunlight. The tension was palpable, thickening the air inside each cockpit like an unseen weight. German fighters streaked toward the formation with desperate speed, their engines screaming against the wind. The Mustangs responded instantly, weaving and diving with practiced precision. Every pilot's grip tightened on the controls, eyes flicking between the horizon and instruments. The enemy's attacks came fast and fierce, but Baker's squadron anticipated their moves, outmaneuvering them with skill born of countless sorties. The sky echoed with the distant crack of gunfire, but the Mustangs held formation, shields against the storm. The battle lingered, a tense choreography of flight paths and threats, each second stretching beyond its measure. Dust and smoke below blended with the faint smell of fuel and oil carried on the wind. The pilots fought not just machines, but exhaustion threading through their limbs and minds. With every evasive roll and burst of speed, they edged closer to the safety of their home base. What happens next will decide the fate of the men involved. When the last German fighter peeled away, defeated or damaged, the battered squadron limped back toward the familiar airfield. Engines wheezed with strain as the Mustangs settled into slow, careful landings. Dust billowed around the runway, mingling with the faint scent of burnt rubber and oil. Mechanics moved swiftly beneath the planes, their hands steady despite the long day's toll. The pilots climbed from their cockpits, faces grim but alive, bodies aching with fatigue. Back at the mess hall, the air was thick with weariness and relief. The men gathered in small clusters, uniforms rumpled, sleeves rolled. Voices were low at first, but gradually laughter broke through, sharp, unexpected, almost fragile. The sound felt like warmth in the cold aftermath of the fight. Harris stood unsteady but resolute, lifting his glass with a crooked smile. "To crazy ideas," he declared, his voice carrying across the room. The toast echoed, a shared acknowledgement of risks taken and bonds forged. Tired hands pulled out worn notepads and faded postcards. Letters home were written in uneven script, words cramped and hurried. Each line carried the weight of absence and hope, the desire to connect across distance and danger. The scratch of pencil on paper mingled with the quiet murmurs of men, recalling faces and places far away. Outside, the sun dipped low, casting long shadows through dusty windows. Russell sat apart for a moment, his fingers tracing the fuel gauge on his Mustang's dashboard. The new mixture had proven itself under fire, quietly becoming standard issue without ceremony. The innovation was small, but its impact was felt in every saved second, every mile gained. It was a silent victory, marked not in headlines but in the steady hum of engines and the lives they carried. The war stretched onward, relentless and unforgiving. Yet within this small, battered squadron, something fundamental had shifted. The men were no longer just surviving. They were adapting, enduring with a fierce, unspoken honor. Their courage was measured not in grand gestures, but in the quiet moments between missions. Stay with this moment, everything is about to shift. Outside, the night crept in, cool and steady. The airfield settled into a fragile calm, the distant rumble of engines fading to silence. Inside, the pilots prepared for the next fight, the next flight, carrying with them the weight of their shared experience. Though the road ahead was uncertain, the bonds forged in the sky endured. In the flickering light of oil lamps and fading day, the faces of the men held a solemn hope. Their story was one of resilience, honor, and the quiet heroism found in the steel and smoke of war. The echoes of their courage would linger long after the engines stilled, and the dust settled on the runway. The Missouri fields where Russell once toiled lay quiet beneath an early morning sky streaked with pale light. No headlines marked the fuel he devised, no medals bore his name. Yet behind the front lines, his effort threaded into the vast machinery of war, unseen but vital. The planes that soared through the gray clouds owed part of their endurance to a quiet farmer's gamble. Pilots clutching worn flight jackets found in those extra miles the difference between fading out over hostile terrain or returning to a waiting crew. Engines hummed longer, wings held steady against fatigue and fire. For those men, each successful sortie was a precious second chance, a return to the camaraderie and hope waiting on the ground. The airfield tents, still damp with dawn's chill, sheltered fewer empty bunk spaces because of Russell's stubborn invention. On the muddy outskirts of Europe, ground crews worked with weary hands, repairing and refueling the returning fighters and bombers. Their tasks were relentless, their faces etched with fatigue and determination. Each plane that rolled back onto the strip was a small victory, one more life spared, one more mission completed. They did not know the farmer's name, but they carried the benefit of his risk in every successful flight. Russell's silent act of hope was a testament to the unseen layers of courage that war demanded. It was not the roar of battle that shaped history, but the quiet resolve of a man who saw necessity and met it with invention. His story remained fixed in the shadows, a measure of honor not in glory but in steadfast purpose. In the exhaust trails that lingered above a war-torn continent, one man's simple courage rippled outward, turning survival into victory. The war's tides moved not just by generals and guns, but by quiet hands willing to bear risk for the sake of strangers. This was the moral echo that endured. Small acts, when held with honor, could change the fate of many.